Hello there, welcome to the English Language Club. It's Tuesday, so it's time for our weekly hangout. My name is Colin Monroe, and this is Tony Cooper. How are you doing, Tony?
I'm doing very well.
Yes, so trying to pretend that you're actually on my left when actually you're in Canada and I'm in the UK. But anyway, thank you for joining us, everybody. We've got quite a few people watching already, which is great. We've got AJ, who is in Monaco. Mohammed says hello, and we've got Kamis in Egypt, Mayuma, and Stephen James. So thank you all for watching. So just so you know, the idea of these live streams, if it is your first time joining us, you are very welcome. We don't have anything prepared. We're just here to answer questions that you put in the chat. So if you have any questions you can think of, put them in the chat and we will get to them, hopefully, if we have time. Mohammed is just clarifying that he is from Pakistan, which is great. So you're very welcome. Now, there is a question from Stephen James. I'm not sure, though. Just going to quickly read that out. Why is your channel Ask Questions Not a Learn English?
So is the question, why is the live stream about asking questions instead of a lesson? Because there's a good answer to that. The channel is about learning English. If you look at all the videos, English Language Club, Colin has a bunch of amazing videos about pronunciation. There's videos about grammar. There's videos about just even like how to learn things, right? The reason on the live stream we take questions is actually two reasons. Though there's a few others, but two that are really helping you learn English the most. One is so that as people are talking to us and asking questions, we can help correct them. That's one of the important things when you're learning English is you can't just watch, listen. You have to actually practice and communicate. So this gives people a chance to communicate with couple of native speakers. The second is a lot of our members, as they are learning English or watching the news or movies or whatever, they stumble across words or phrases or sentences that they don't understand, and they can bring those here, as we get a lot of people asking questions about things they've read during the week or heard during the week, and so that's a really great way of expanding your knowledge.
Yeah. And another thing that we often do is people just ask us how do you pronounce this? They just want us to model the pronunciation of a word. Yes. So I am from the UK. I'm in the UK right now. So I have a British accent, but Tony he's in Canada, but he's from the United States, so he has an American accent. So if you want to hear a word pronounced in both American and British accents, then we can do that for you as well. So yeah, let's get on. Let's get going, because we last time was great. We had loads of chat and we ran out of time and didn't get to all the questions, unfortunately. So we've got a great question here from Sunil, who says, Sir, I can understand native English speakers, but I'm not able to speak like them. What should I do for it? Well, I mean, you just need to keep practicing. It's really difficult. But then also, learning any language is difficult. It takes a lot of work, and you just need to keep practicing. But you can do it. You can get there. It's not impossible. You might see courses and YouTube videos and selling courses and things where they say, "Oh, you can speak English perfectly in 3 months, really easily, without doing any studying or any thinking." This is all nonsense. You can't do that. Yeah. The only way that you're going to make any progress, and this is not just learning English, it's anything. It takes hard work. Nothing worth doing is easy. You do need to work. But there's one other thing I want to say. You said you understand native English speakers, but you're not able to speak like them. Well, that shouldn't necessarily be your goal. There's nothing wrong with, speaking with your native accent. If you don't have to sound like a British person or an American person.
Right.
As long as you are pronouncing words correctly, because there's a difference between correct pronunciation and having a native accent. That shouldn't necessarily be your goal, to sound like a native speaker. Don't be ashamed of your own accent. But yeah, it just takes practice. And, you're obviously thinking about it. You're obviously watching YouTube videos, watching live streams. So you're doing the right thing. Just keep at it, keep practicing, keep watching. Make sure you're subscribed, give us a thumbs up and all that.
I just want to add to that. So if the problem that you're having is native speakers can't understand you when you talk, then probably your problem is in pronunciation. So that's where all of the videos that Colin has from years back about pronunciation are amazing. Because if you can figure out exactly what sounds aren't working, like people don't understand them when you say those sounds, watch those videos, focus on them. Pronunciation is physical. It's all about how you move the parts of your mouth. So you can pronounce it correctly if you know where to put your tongue, where to put your teeth, so on. And all of Colin's videos on pronunciation will help you out with that, if that's what your problem is.
Great. Yes.
Thank you. You may be able to tell I'm a big fan of Colin's pronunciation videos. They're really, really amazing.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. Now, just so you know, what we do is we work through the comments one by one. So that's currently what we do. So if we don't answer your question immediately, it's just because we haven't got to it yet. So there's no need to keep repeating questions in the chat. If you've put something in there, then we will answer it. Although sometimes we don't get to the ones at the end. So we prioritize the ones at the beginning. We do also take the super chats. We've had a couple of super chats, so we will prioritize them. If you're willing to support us and give us a little tip, then we'll take that and prioritize your comment and be very grateful. Thank you. We haven't had a huge number of questions yet, but AJ, AJ's got a joke question, so we'll do that, and then we're going to come back to Mariuma's question.
Okay.
AJ's got a very silly question. It says, "Can you both say yeehaw, yeehaw, yeehaw?" Now that's not a word we say in British English. That's more an American word.
That's not a word Americans say either. It's a word people say in movies or something. I mean, I can say it. I can say the word as I would say it if I said, like, if I was reading and someone said yeehaw, I'd be like, and they said yeehaw. But that's not how they say it in movies. In movies, they say yeehaw. Yeah. So anyway, that's a silly question. Any serious questions? Yes, are very welcome. So should we'll go to Mariuma's question? Mariuma and Mohammed have some similar questions here. Yeah.
So hi, what is an inquiry letter and how do I write it? Now, and then Mohammed's question, which is similar. I'm confused in the format of a letter of application. What should I do? So there's two types of letter there.
Two different types of letter, yeah.
Two different types of letter. So let's maybe talk about letters in general, and then we can talk about those two different types in particular.
Yeah. So writing a letter is a little bit odd compared to any other communication in English. It's different because it's formal. You have to use formal language. You don't use contractions, this kind of stuff. But in terms of the format, this is where it gets weird. Different kinds of letters have a very specific format, and it won't be the same thing everywhere. Different places will have different rules. For instance, I remember when I was in school learning how many spaces you had to put between your name and the beginning of the letter in a business letter or in a university application letter or different things, right? So you kind of have to look up the exact format for what you're doing. It's a lot easier to find out.
I also kind of feel like yes, there are really specific rules about everything like that. That nowadays, I feel like there's been a deformalization of things a lot.
Well, and I agree normally. However, people who still expect letters, that's a little different. And so I do think, so for instance, if you're applying to a university, follow their instructions exactly, right? If you're applying for a job and they give you instructions, follow those instructions exactly. Because otherwise, and they might even have a computer system that handles all the incoming letters and just rejects them if they are not properly formatted. So in most things that people do on a daily basis, the exact format doesn't matter that much. When it does matter, like a university paper or a formal application or something like that, you have to be careful with it. So,
but the rule, there's lots of different sets of rules and formats and everything. That would, maybe a particular university has their way they like it done, or a particular company has their way they like it done. And so it's not really something that we can go through off the top of our heads. But you could definitely find that information out there. But in general, you're going to want to put your own address, and then the date, and then how would you address if you know the person, you can say dear Mr. or Mrs. and then the surname. Or if you don't know the person, you would say dear sir or madam, or to whom it may concern. Depending on when would you use either of those.
So dear sir or madam is when you're addressing your letter to someone like the head of HR, or the entrance, the admissions committee or whatever. You write to whom it may concern if you're emailing or if you're writing a letter to a company or a group where you have
so perhaps what Miriam was asking about, an inquiry letter. So perhaps to whom it may concern would be.
So an inquiry letter is an official request for information. So you might be writing a letter to a company asking what products their company sells, right? That would be a great example to say, to whom it may concern. You address it just to the company, and then you say to whom it may concern. But if you're writing an inquiry letter to, say, a well-known expert, asking them for a piece of information, then you would say, dear professor.
Then you'd be more formal. Yeah.
Well, you'd be more individual. To whom it may concern is just vague, and so it's not as personal and individual as if you have their
you always want to be as personal as you can.
Personal as you can.
If you don't know the name of the person you need to write to, then it's always good to find out if you can, rather than being vague. Because often I get letters saying to the occupier or to the homeowner, and I know that that's not important.
Right. So in terms of just how to write it, in letters you want to be formal. You want to organize everything very neatly, format it on the page. Don't use slang. Make sure that your punctuation and spelling is perfect. It's not like writing an email or texting, right?
Yeah.
For Mohammed's question about a letter of application, that's where, like with the inquiry letter, there's probably not a specific perfect format that you have to use. Just be organized. But with the application letter, it's easy to just look up online application letter format and then say what kind of area it is. So like if it's to a Canadian university, Canadian university application letter format, and you'll find the different formats. But they're going to be different for every different area. So you have to figure out exactly what area you're looking for. Yeah. But you should.
And what about and then just quickly, what about ending the letter? What are the different ways you end the letter?
Ending a letter, pretty much write sincerely and your name.
Yeah. I guess if it's but you also sometimes see kind regards or yours faithfully.
There's lots of different ones, and it can be a little tricky to figure it out. So I always tell people end it with sincerely, and then your name. Sincerely, comma, and then below that, your name. There are lots of ways you can do it. For instance, unless something is super formal, I usually end it with "Thank you very much."
Unless an email or something, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't write letters very often anymore. But there are lots of different ways you can end a letter or an email. Sincerely is a good, just kind of default. It's very rarely wrong, but there are lots of things. Kind regards, sincerely yours, thank you for your time is a good one. Yeah.
Okay, Mohammed and Mariuma, I hope that was helpful. If it was, please give us a thumbs up. We've got 13 people watching at the moment. We did have about 20 a minute ago. So, but if you are still watching, please give us a thumbs up. And let's move on to the next question. We've got a question here from Sunil. Who says, I've really been frustrated thinking about the speaking English. I can't speak. I can listen, I can write and read, but I'm not good at speaking. Can you please tell me how I get it? Okay, so that's sort of the same question as before, which we already answered.
If there's any
just to reiterate,
improve your speaking,
yeah, I mean, there's certainly no magic trick to it.
I mean, insofar as there a magic trick, the trick is you have to actually talk to people. Yeah. All too often we say, I'm not good. This happened to me in Spanish for a long time. I would think I'm not as good at speaking it. I can understand or I can read. And so I would avoid talking to people. But that's the way you get good at it, is by talking to people who speak that language. Not just listening, not practicing, communicating. Because there's something about the back and forth. You try to say something, you try to understand the response, and ask people to correct you if you make a mistake.
Yeah.
There's no magic to it. It just takes practice. But your best bet is to practice speaking to people in English.
And when you speak in your native language, you just don't think about it. You just understand things on a kind of subconscious level. But when you're speaking a second language, I mean, as everyone watching knows, you really have to think about it. You really have to focus. But actually putting yourself out there and having conversations with people allows you to, as opposed to just trying to learn from a textbook and practicing with a teacher, it allows you to kind of piece things together that you don't fully understand, but from other information, from the context, from the body language. Then you can start to guess, and that's sort of what we're doing when we speak our native language. That's why it feels so subconscious, because we're picking up so many other signals. So yeah, just practicing that. I've also talked about this sort of 3-step process in the past, about where you might learn something in a classroom, and you may have heard that thing hundreds of times before, but because it was something you didn't understand, you didn't even pick up on it. You didn't even recognize it. It was just, that's something I don't understand. But then you learn something in a kind of academic setting or in a classroom, and then you're like, okay, and then you start to hear it, as if you'd never heard it before. You were hearing it before, you just didn't understand it, so you couldn't pick it out. But now you can pick it out. You can start to see that and hear people using it, and then you can start to use it yourself, because you start to see the context that people use it and how it's appropriate to use. So yeah, be conscious of that 3-step process. But if you just learn something in the classroom and then you never put it into practice, you'll easily forget it very quickly. So you can't expect to do too much all in one go. You've got to sort of learn, apply, practice, and then learn, apply, practice, learn, apply, practice in little pieces. So we actually don't have many other questions. We don't have any other questions yet. If you have any other questions, please let us know. Get them coming in. Did we have anything from last week that we didn't get to?
I think there was just the one question from Susanta.
Okay, can you remember that?
Yes. So Susanta asked, they heard I good luck him or something like that, and wanted to know if you can use good luck as a verb. So I think the example that Susanta gave didn't work. However, you do hear that a lot. People just say good luck, as if it was a verb all by itself, and it isn't. But this just comes from something that's common, not just in English, but a lot of different languages, where often when we're wishing someone something, we leave out the actual verb. So the verb could be, and the subject. So the sentence would be, I wish you good luck, and instead we just say good luck. It's kind of like if you're saying, have a good day, but you could also just say good day, right? You're really wishing them when you say good morning or good night. You're wishing them a good morning or a good night, but you don't say, I wish you a good night. You just say good night. Same thing is going on with good luck.
Yeah.
It's not a verb. It can't be used as a verb. I wouldn't say.
Great. Sorry, I'm just writing a thing to put in the caption there to ask for questions, because we haven't got so many today. AJ's going to ask another silly one about cigars, but we'll skip that. But Mariuma's got a question. So, how can I pronounce the final S, the final S? So the final S, as in like plurals.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. It isn't going to be the same at all times. I mean, if you by putting the slashes, you're talking about the sound. So that sound is always pronounced S, right?
Yeah.
But the last S of a word is not always going to be pronounced S. For instance, fishes, right? Sometimes it'll be pronounced with a Z. Yeah, exactly.
So the S and Z are what are called they're both paired consonants, which means the only difference is that with one of them you use your vocal cords when you pronounce it, and the other one you don't. So with S, it's not voiced. It's unvoiced. So, but with Z, it is voiced. Other than that, physically, they're exactly the same. But that's unfortunately with the spelling in English is inconsistent. So sometimes the S on the end of a word to make it plural will be pronounced Z, and sometimes it will be pronounced S. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. Let us know if you've got any follow-up questions to that, because I'm not sure we've fully answered what you were getting at, Mariuma.
Or give us some example words that you'd like us to pronounce for you. Yeah.
Yes, that's probably the easiest thing. Yeah, give us some examples. Yeah. So while we're waiting for some more questions to come in, we can talk a little bit about some of the other things that we do and that we're trying to get up and running in the English Language Club. So obviously we're doing these weekly live streams. We've been doing them for almost a year. And we're going to have some changes coming as of next week. So we'll talk about those a little bit later. But yeah, so we do these live streams, and we've also we're trying to put out some more videos. But then we've also got Patreon. You can join the club on Patreon, and so we're going to try to do sort of regular Zoom calls with people who are in Patreon. We tried it out a few times earlier in the year, and it was great. We got a few regulars, so that was great. We opened it up to everyone though, and it was a bit difficult because with the security of Zoom calls. So yeah, we are going to have to keep it limited to just people on Patreon in the future. But then we've also got the Discord sort of starting up, and we're getting people joining on the Discord. So it'd be really great to start thinking about what we can get going there as well. Feels like we are, we're trying to really working hard to kind of build something and get it going, but it's really hard to get the sort of momentum going. So if if you like what we're doing, please do get involved. Please join the Patreon. Please join Discord, and help us to get things moving. And if you have any ideas for videos that you'd like to see, you can always send us a message through the website. And also, I do read the comments on videos, so you can always read those or comment there, so that we can see them there. Okay, Mariuma's got another question about. So how can I pronounce can? Now, so do you mean can the verb? I can do this, I can do that. Or do you mean can, like a tin can, a can of Coke? So yeah, that's what would that be called? It's not a homophone. It's well, I guess they are homophones. Yeah, so there's several words, or is it just two? It's two words that are spelled exactly the same and pronounced very similar. But it's can and can. So it's a and a. So yeah, interesting example you've chosen there. How would you say that? Is it different in American accent?
Well,
I feel like it is.
It is different, but it's going to depend on regional variation and what mood I'm in, because you often get. I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, but oftentimes you hear it more pronounced can. I can do this. So depending
the verb,
range, the verb, right? I can do this. So, but depending on the regional accent, you're going to hear somewhere between can, where it sounds the same. I can do that. I can do that, and I can do that. So there's not a specific. It's somewhere in there, depending on where you're from or where you live.
So as a verb, this is a modal verb. So and as we sort of with modal verbs and auxiliary verbs, I guess modal verbs are a type of auxiliary verb. They're used very frequently, but because then they're never the verb that sort of holds the main meaning of what you're saying. They're just there to sort of help with the grammatical idea. We often say them very quickly. They get squeezed and softened. Yeah. So
almost skipped over. Right.
Yeah. Abbreviated almost. So yeah, can often is pronounced can. I can do that. I can do that for you. But I feel like in an American accent, you don't say that. What do you?
I mean, it's a regional thing. It really is a regional thing, though. The difference, because you'll hear some people saying a can of corn. So it's. It really just depends. The one thing about that shortening is that English, some languages have multiple very short vowel sounds, but in English, the very short vowel sounds all kind of sound the same. We use the same symbol for them in pronunciation, which is the schwa symbol, to just represent a really short vowel. So the shorter you pronounce a vowel, the more they all kind of sound the same. At least in English. In some other languages, there are very specific differences between a short and a short but in American, or at least in English in general, there's not really a difference between the very short vowels. They're all kind of pronounced the same.
Yeah.
Which is why we talk about things like a schwa sound when there isn't really a sound. For that.
Well, it's a bit funny to say the sound.
Exactly, sound. Yeah.
And I think some people also feel like by showing that they know the name of the sound, it makes them look smart. But
right.
Okay. Now, Mariuma also just said yes. I can't remember whether we asked a question or she was asking for.
Whether it was can or can,
right. But then you're also asking for the final S. So maybe yes.
No, this was after we were talking about this. This is while we were talking. When you asked, is it? Are you talking about can? Oh, they've got another question.
Okay, great. If it wasn't, thank you, Mariuma, for your questions. It's funny this week we're just really not getting many questions. So Yeah, we're here for you guys.
Yeah.
Let's get your questions coming in. Like
very interesting questions from those who are asking. So thanks. These are good ones.
Yeah. So, how can I understand the past simple tense? Great question. Now, this is what our course on our website is all about, Inside English. And I feel like the past tense, the past simple tense, is one that has the most irregular verbs, and or rather is affected by irregular. Obviously, all irregular verbs affect all the tenses, but the form of it confuses people in the past simple tense quite a lot. So this is what confuses people, the way that the simple tenses are taught and things, and we try to get around that. So how can I understand the past simple tense? So what could be going wrong with how she's understanding this, Tony?
So there's two, I think, main things that are odd about the past simple tense. What to use it for is pretty easy. It's used for things that are just generally in the past, and you're not trying to say anything specific about them. They're just something that happened, right? But the
you're not saying anything specific about when or when it starts.
Like you wouldn't say, for instance, when you wouldn't use the past simple is if you're telling a story. So I woke up this morning, past tense, past simple. I ate breakfast, past simple. I brushed my teeth, past simple, and I left the door. And then I realized I had forgotten my keys. So you have to switch to a different tense when, as you're telling a story, now you want to say something that happened in a different time. So that's when you don't. So generally speaking, if you're talking about something in the past, as long as everything's kind of happening at that same time, you just keep using the simple past. It's just that easy. Where people get tripped up with the simple past is I think two things. One, the fact that there is a whole irregular set of verbs that for the past simple. We even talk about the past simple form of a verb because so many verbs have an irregular form in the past simple. Right?
Now, I just want to quickly show another question we've got from Javi, which is, are you watching or do you watch? What's the difference? So do you watch is simple, and are you watching is continuous. So present simple and present continuous. Now, the reason I wanted to just skip to that is because this all sort of ties in together. And I think what we can do is maybe talk about what simple actually means and what it doesn't mean, and the best way to understand it. Because normally I feel like when I've taught English and I've gone through textbooks, the simple tenses are the ones we learn first. And this implies that they're the easiest. And
they're even called simple.
They're even called simple. But the reason the simple tenses are called simple is not because they're easy.
No.
We actually teach it as last. So you've got the three types of action: simple, continuous, and perfect. We teach continuous first because it's the most regular. It always has an auxiliary verb to be, and it is always in the ing form. And then we teach the perfect because, again, it always has the auxiliary verb.
And it's always used the most consistently.
So just quickly, continuous means that the action is ongoing at the time you're talking about, whether that's past, present, or future. And the perfect means that the action is finished before the time you're talking about, but you're talking about the result or the effect on the time that you're talking about. So with both of those, you're talking about when you're giving more information through the tense about when the action started and when it finished or when it will finish. Simple tenses are called simple tenses because they don't do that. They just say the action happened or like if I say
because it's leaving out information. You're not talking about whether it's ongoing or whether it's finished. You're just saying when, either past, present, or future, with no comment about anything else, about how long it took or anything like that.
So how can I understand the past simple tense? So remember, you're talking about something that happened in the past but you're not saying anything else about when it happened, when it started, or when it finished.
Yeah.
But you do know that it is something that finished because it happened in the past. It's not something that always happens.
Yeah.
Well, you could, because you could say the sun rose this morning.
Yeah.
That's
so
talking
you're not
specifically
talking about the fact that the sun rises every morning, or you would use the present simple. You use the past simple because you're talking about one particular sunrise that happened in the past, right? And that's all the information you're giving it. You're not saying, how many times did this happen? When, did it happen over a period of time or all at once? In order to say that stuff, you'd have to add more words to the sentence. You could say, the sun rose every morning of my childhood, right? Now you're adding that information because the verb itself doesn't have that information.
Yeah. Great. Now, a couple of questions from Javi. So we'll get back to what Javi was talking about continuous, but I'm just going to skip ahead to Mariuma's question because it ties in with past simple, and about the pronunciation of the ed. So in the regular verbs have the ed at the end, but it's never pronounced ed. So it's another one of the weird things about the past simple tense. It's always either pronounced id, like I can never remember examples when I'm on the spot. Directed. So it's id. Or sometimes it's just pronounced d, like loved. Or it can be pronounced, or it's pronounced like a T, walked. There's three ways to pronounce that ed. When it's pronounced ed, it can be pronounced. When it's spelt ed, it can be pronounced in those three ways, which is really confusing, especially as none of those three ways are ed.
Yeah.
So I hope that's helpful. Remember, it's always ed. No, it's never ed. It's always id, d, or t. Yes. Okay, so getting back to Javi's question. Are you watching? So that's a question in the present continuous tense, or do you watch? A question in the present simple tense. So what is the difference?
This is specifically, I think, asking about, you're asking someone about a television show, and you want to know if they watch the show that you are talking about, right? So technically speaking, are you watching means, are you in the middle of watching? That doesn't mean, because it's continuous, so it means it's something that's already started and hasn't finished yet. It doesn't mean you're watching it right now. Like right now, you are watching this video, right? But you could say, oh, these days I'm watching, I don't know, The Mandalorian season, whichever, I don't know, it's on, right? It doesn't mean you're watching it right now. It means you started watching that season and you haven't gotten to the end of it yet, right? However, you wouldn't ask someone, do you watch is it a statement of fact? When it's on, do you watch it? So for instance, if you're waiting for the next season of what's a television show that isn't on right now, I don't know. Is there another season of Star Trek Picard? We'll do that because I know that one.
Okay.
You could ask, do you watch Star Trek Picard? Because it's not out right now. But you're more asking when that show is available, do you watch it? It's more of a statement of general fact. But you could always use do you watch whenever you're using are you watching as well, right? Do you watch The Mandalorian? Like you're not specifically asking, are you watching it right now? You haven't finished it yet. Do you watch it when you
So with are you watching, remember we said the continuous is something that's in progress. So we know it's going to end. Right. We know it's going to end. And we're talking about it as something that is going to end. So if we say, are you watching The Mandalorian? We could be talking about the season because it's not necessarily happening at the exact time. It could just be around that time. Or you could be talking about a specific episode. Are you watching Mandalorian right now? But do you watch doesn't really refer. It just means in general. Do you like it? You're not saying anything about the show starting or finishing.
Again, it's simple tense. You're leaving out information, like
Yeah.
when it started and when it finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So present simple we use for. It ends up getting used for things that are just generally true, like the sun rises. I am Colin is present simple.
Yeah.
These are things that are generally true, so I'm not saying anything about when they start or end.
Right. I watch every superhero movie, or I, always read news reports about space travel, or
Yeah. Great. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Let us know and give us a thumbs up if it is. And let us know if you've got any follow-up questions. Actually, there is another question from Javi. So when we write a paragraph, why can't we use pronouns I, we, you? Because the teacher said that they're unacceptable in the exam. But in the same time, I can't write a paragraph without using them.
So this is something very specific. Yeah, there is nothing wrong in general with the pronouns I, we, and you in a paragraph. If you are writing a factual essay, an essay about facts, you do not use these pronouns because you do not talk about what you think or what you have done, and you do not talk about the reader and what the reader thinks and what the reader has done. You only talk about facts. And so you use things like scientists have discovered, not I think or I read.
There's nothing wrong with pronouns.
No,
that's not the point. It's just in the context that your teacher's talking about, which is obviously a sort of an essay or something. Yeah, then in that context, you should try to be more factual because you're not giving your opinion or someone else's opinion. Yeah, you're saying.
Or even your experience. You're not talking about things that you know. You're talking about things that that you have. That are facts, that there's information about. Yeah. So that's actually a really interesting one, and you do get this a lot in school. But just generally speaking, if you're talking about facts, remember facts don't have anything to do with you. They don't have anything to do with the person you're talking to, right? So you don't want to talk about yourselves when you're talking about facts, right? And so that's all that's going on here. It's a really good question because it's so weird being told you can't use I, we, and you, right? So you have to rephrase every sentence as, according to this book, elephants always do this, right? You have to make sure that the subject of your sentence is never a person unless it's, someone in a book or
a specific person. You could say, Steven Spielberg made the movie E.T.
Yeah, but not you or the person you're talking to. So no I, we, or you.
Or you could then once you've specified that you're talking about a particular person, you can then refer to them as he or she later on.
Or they, right? Scientists have studied this. They have discovered, right? Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with pronouns, particularly. The idea is that you do not want to talk about yourself or the person that's reading. You only want to talk about third person. Yeah. Well, you don't say. Yeah, you wouldn't say I have no friends. This is probably a separate question. Never mind. I thought it was related to the one about the paragraph.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that, but we've got some other questions first. So Gautam, who's watching on YouTube, on Facebook. So hello, Facebook. He is saying, how do you pronounce direction, divorce, develop, etc.? I don't know what other words you put in that list.
So words that begin with a D and with then a short vowel, right? Yeah. So say those again. Yeah.
Direction, divorce, develop. So not de because it's d.
Well, because those develop like those are short vowels, not just short vowels, but like half vowels. So the way you pronounce direction, you're not pronouncing it as a short vowel. I might pronounce it direction. So direction, in an American accent, that I is almost not pronounced. It's direction. Whereas, so it's a schwa. It's a half vowel, a very short vowel sound. Same divorce. It's not divorce. At least that's not when I'm pronouncing it, right? And develop. I'm not saying develop. It's just develop.
Yeah. Now,
So that's an
I think
example of what I was saying before, that in English, once you make a vowel short enough, they all kind of sound the same, right? But that is specifically...
And we do that in British English as well. Yeah,
right.
well, I think we do that in British English as
you
well.
You do,
just,
but these words
I was sort of over-pronouncing for clarity's sake. So,
some people...
But yeah, in the real
direction, right? So in different accents, direction is not pronounced with a half vowel. But I pronounce it direction, not direction. I would say direct.
I think I would, and I would
direction.
it depends on the context, who I'm talking to, and how it comes in the sentence.
So I think that's what Gautam is getting at with this question is.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting
all pronounced
question.
the same, and they are all pronounced the same if you're pronouncing them with that half vowel. Direction, divorce, develop. There's no difference. Debt would be different because it's the only vowel. It's going to be pronounced more fully. You don't pronounce it debt. It's just debt with an actual e sound. So usually you'll get this when you have like kind of a something tacked onto the beginning of a word that's another 2 or 3 syllables, or that's 2 or 3 syllables. Give us some more examples if you'd like to see if they fit into the pattern.
Yeah. So thank you for that question. So yeah, let's go back to Howie's question that they put in earlier. I have no friends, or I don't have friends. So yeah, so have is a I've no friends. So the most common would be I don't have friends. That's a sort of more normal way of saying.
Or I don't have any friends.
Yeah, but that's the normal. Using do not
is more common.
Yeah,
but there's nothing wrong with I've no friends. It's just not. You would have to have a specific reason for saying it that way because it's a little bit unusual. But it's not wrong. It's just a little different.
But one of the key ideas of our course on tenses, which is called Inside English, is that there's 3 structures for a sentence. So you've got things that can be positive, negative, or a question. So in this case, you've got they're both negative. You're making negatives. The normal standard way of making a negative is to use the auxiliary verb, whatever the auxiliary verb is. This is present simple, so it's do, and then you use the word not. But then they can make a contraction. So I don't have friends, or then the main verb. So I don't do drugs. I don't live in New York. So it's subject I, auxiliary verb, then not, then the main verb. That's the sort of structure, the normal structure. Whereas I've no friends is another way of doing it, but it's not the standard way. So they're both correct, but one is far. I don't have friends would be far more common.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Tony?
Yes, I don't have friends would be it's just the normal way of saying that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you do have friends. We're your friends. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that question. Now, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, but maybe you do.
I'm not going to be. Can I call you John? I'm not going to be able to pronounce that one exactly. I don't think.
Okay, so how do you pronounce? And then there's another question. Heard, hard, and heart. Heard, hard, heart.
Yeah. So this is one where none of these are super short vowels, so they do sound different. Heard, hard, heart. Yeah. Hard and
so hard
have the same vowel sound, right? Hard and heart.
Yeah, hard and heart.
And the only difference between D and T is whether it's voiced, right?
Yeah, so again, they're a consonant pair. One's voiced, one's not. The D is voiced. Yeah, so hard and heart are, I guess, what we call a minimal pair. There's not a lot between them. Mm-hmm. But weirdly, they are spelt very differently. In fact, heart is spelt more closer to heard, even though it's pronounced more differently. Yeah, so good. That's a good set of words. We recently did well, we did a video on the 3 verbs. Look, see, look, and watch. Okay, but then they're all sort of similar meaning as well. But,
yeah, it's about the meanings being similar.
This is more of a pronunciation question. So yeah, good.
Yeah. Let me know if I'm pronouncing this right. Is your name Jahangir Kemirov? Let me know if I'm pronouncing it right. I have trouble with the sound.
Okay. Well, great. Okay, now Camis. We've seen Camis before.
Yes.
How to pronounce Brussels? Brussels.
Brussels. When you pronounce this as part of Brussels sprouts, you don't pronounce the S at the end. It's just Brussels sprouts, and it can be spelled either way. But
yes, because it would be difficult to pronounce the S because you're going into another S on sprouts. Yeah. So Brussels sprouts is difficult to say.
Yeah. So the city of Brussels would pronounce it Brussels in English.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they don't pronounce it that way. And then Brussels sprouts without the S. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So
questions.
We've had a few questions on tenses today, which is great. So maybe we've talked about our key ideas. So maybe we can, while we're waiting for some more questions to come in, so get those questions coming in. Let's go through our key ideas and why we think they are important.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
The first one was that one I was just talking about, how you've got the 3 types of sentence: positive, negative, and question. And this is basically, you just order those 3 elements. You've got the subject, which is I, you, he, she, then you've got the auxiliary verb, and then you've got the main verb. And then whichever order you put those in changes whether it's positive, negative, or question. Although negative, you also add not. And the reason we like to highlight this is because it's very, very simple, and it applies to every verb and every tense. And it doesn't matter if the verb is irregular. Now, as we saw, there are other ways to make something negative, or there are other ways to make questions. But this is sort of the standard way, and it's very simple, And people often talk about how grammar is so difficult and so many irregular things and everything. We like to focus on what does make things simple. We're making tense make sense. So that's our first key idea.
The second big idea is that we've got 9 or 12 tenses, but really there's 2 things you need to know about tense, and there's only 3 of each. So there's only 6 things you need to learn. Every tense is a combination of a time of action, past, present, or future, and a type of action, continuous, perfect, or simple, right? And so you get this grid of 9, and there's actually 12 because something can be both continuous and perfect. So if you understand how these work, continuous is talking about an action that's going on at the time you're talking about, and the time can be past.
Whoops, we just lost Tony. Anyway, so as he was saying, you've got the simple type of action, which means, he's back now. We lost you there, Tony. I was just carrying on. So the simple, we start with the continuous, as we were saying earlier. The simple's a little more difficult to explain if you don't understand the continuous and the perfect. So continuous means something is ongoing at the time of action, whether that's past, present, or future. And the perfect means that it's finished and has an effect on, or you're talking about the effect on the time of action, whether that's past, present, or future. And then simple means you're not saying anything about when it starts or ends. You're just saying that it's generally true at the time of action. I find that's the best way to describe it. People often describe those things in other ways, like if it's past simple, it has to have finished, which maybe is true most of the time, but it's not really getting to the heart of what simple is. So that's our second key idea. And then the third key idea is about auxiliary verbs.
Yes, everything's in the auxiliary verbs.
Yeah, and we, because people always teach the simple first, And when they teach the past simple, they say it's all about the form of the verb. You've got to put the ed on the end. That's the past simple form. But then other tenses don't have their own form. You know, the continuous doesn't have a form. I mean, it has ing, but that's not the continuous form.
But that's used for other things too. So it's not,
Yeah, and same with the perfect. That uses the past participle form, which is weird because it uses the same form. It uses the past participle form whether it's past, present, or future. Yeah, we also use the past participle form to make things passive.
Yeah.
So the form of the verb doesn't have as much to do with tense as people think.
No.
Tenses are all about the auxiliary verb.
And you can always tell everything you need to know about tense from the auxiliary verbs.
Yeah.
Right.
If you take away every other word from a sentence and you only know the auxiliary verb, you know what tense it is. Because you remember that you need those two things, time of action and type of action. So if the auxiliary verb is do, then you know it's simple. If it's in the past tense, then did, then you know it's past simple. Simple as that. It's a much easier.
Whereas the simple tense isn't.
Yeah, but then let's say future perfect. So future. So if it will have the auxiliary verb have, then you know it's perfect. Now future's a bit odd because you have the extra auxiliary verb will, or you can use going to. If it has one of those two extra auxiliary verbs, then you know it's future.
Yeah.
So I will have lived in Scotland for 10 years soon. Then you know will have lived. That will have, you know it's. You don't need to see lived, you know, will have, you know, it's future perfect.
Yeah.
So
we do have that's all questions. So
great,
but definitely check out the course. It's on our website, EnglishLanguageClub.co.uk. We really do feel that this is going to really help people improve their confidence as we take out some of the difficulty. Because tense is often something that makes things hard for us, and we worry about it. And so, really, really understanding it on a basic level will really help your confidence in speaking.
Yeah. Great. So, okay, let's just we don't have a lot of time because we do need to finish promptly today. So we're just going to go very quickly. So Javi says to have an accent is an important thing. I mean, to learn a specific accent. Because we always are affected by our own language, so it's kind of hard.
And we talked about this earlier, right?
It's more important that you have the correct pronunciation.
It's about being understood, right? Yeah. If you have the correct pronunciation and people can understand you, having a specific accent is not as important because, like you say, you are always going to be affected by your own language. And also, the accent is going to be different everywhere you go. Let's say you want to move to Canada, so you work really hard on a Canadian accent, and then you go to university in Quebec, where they do not have the same accent, or you go and you wind up living in Newfoundland, where they do not have the same accent. Right? Accent is very regional, but pronunciation and how you can be understood—that's what you want to focus on.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I don't think you should try to mimic a specific native English accent, whether it's American or British. Yeah. You should just be focused on pronunciation.
Exactly.
It's not the same as accents. Yeah. I'm not sure I understand this question from Mariuma. Jack's just joined us. Hey, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
One of our regular members. We're just about to end, Jack. You've missed the whole thing. You're going to have to go back and watch it from the beginning. How can I ask about the personality futures?
I'm not sure what this, like, if you're asking, are you going to be happy later? I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean by this.
Yeah, so sorry about that, Miriam. I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah. But you had a lot of good questions.
A lot of good questions, but by all means, type that, if you can clarify, we will get to that. Unfortunately, we haven't got any more time. I've just seen Zahira on Facebook. Your questions come in. I'm sorry, we've really got to finish promptly today. But I need to tell you before we go that next week we're not going to have a live stream. It's the first time we won't have done a live stream since we started doing live streams almost a year ago. I think it was March or April when we started. But we will have a video go live, and we will do a premiere of it. I'll be there in the chat. So I suppose
I really want to answer Jack's question too, but Nick, another time.
Yeah.
We'll remember that one. And I think there we'll still be able to answer questions in the chat of the premiere next week. Am I right? Maybe.
Yeah. So we're going to do that. We're going to do the premiere next week, and then we'll carry on the live streams hopefully the following week. Although we may have another week off, but hopefully we'll be able to start them again the following week. But they will be at a different time. It's going to be later, unfortunately, just the way things have worked out with our schedules. This time is not going to be convenient for us. So I hope you're still going to be able to make it. But I also hope lots of new people are going to be able to join us as well. Now, if you want to know when it's going to be, as soon as we know, you'll be able to, if you go to this page on the website, englishlanguageclub.co.uk/live, you will see, once we set up the stream, you'll see what time it's going to be there. Unfortunately, right now, we don't know exactly when it's going to be, but it will be later.
And if you have questions, because if you're not sure whether you'll be able to make it or not, but you can always watch later, go to our Discord. We have a whole channel on the Discord for putting questions, so you can make sure those questions get answered. I know Jack put that question on there because I want to be able to answer that question in a future live stream. So
yeah, great. Okay. So yeah, just also thank you to number one, who made a very kind comment. You guys telling us we did a great job. But yes, so thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Just not sure when. But yeah, have a good couple of weeks, and yeah, see you soon.